Hello, friends. My name is Jamie, and welcome to another episode of the Mission to Martius podcast. Mission to Martius is my fantasy adventure audio drama about humans and fairies that I'm currently in the process of developing. The full story synopsis will be down below in the description. All episodes of the Mission to Martius podcast will be linked down below in the podcast playlist. Last episode was about the Enchanted Cove, the main fairy society in Mission to Martius. Today's episode is about the titular kingdom Martius, its queen Reya, and other significant characters from Martius that you need to know for the story. We're finally going to talk about our antagonists, so without further ado, let's get into it. If you've been keeping up with the podcast, then you've seen that I dedicated several episodes to the kingdom Harmonia, one of the main kingdoms in Mission to Martius. However, I will not be doing the same for Martius, and the reason for that is because so much of the story is about the mysteries that surround Martius. That's part of the intrigue, so I don't want to give too much of that away. That being said, I will give some general information about the kingdom and its history before we get into talking about our key players from Martius. I'm also going to include a few references of what I envision Martius to look like so that you guys get the general vibes. So, Martius is one of the 6 human kingdoms in Reya, the fictional world that Mission to Martius is set in. Martius is located southwest in relation to Harmonia. The kingdom color for Martius is black. The Martius royal family wears black accented with gold, and Martius soldiers wear black capes with their military uniforms. Martius has a long history of anti-fairy sentiment, infamously celebrating and supporting fairy hunters before and during the Human-Fairy War. But even with this history, it wasn't until the reign of Martius's current queen, Reya, that Martius truly gained the reputation for being the anti-fairy kingdom that it's known for today. Which brings us then to Queen Reya. There's so much to say about Reya, and yet there's a lot that I cannot say at the moment. But before we get into all of that, as always, here are Reya's references. Reya's references really reflect how mysterious she is because you literally cannot see her face. She wears a black lace veil at all times. Sometimes she will wear a crown adorned with black gems, a gold crown adorned with black gems with the veil. She wears a black gown with gold detailing and black heels. Sometimes she will wear black gloves that match her veil, but when she doesn't, you can see that she has light olive skin, and Reya is 5'11". Reya is the current queen of Martius and the main antagonist in Mission to Martius. It goes without saying that there's a lot of mystery surrounding Reya. She's incredibly secretive and hard to get a read on. To quote Cassandra Landerson, Reya is unpredictable at best. No one knows what her true motives are, what her end goal objective is, and why she does the things that she does. But if there's one thing about Reya that is guaranteed, it's her penchant for cruelty and violence. Shortly after she began her reign as Queen of Martius, Reya made it illegal for fairies to enter Martius, and in the following years proceeded to fuel anti-fairy sentiments in the kingdom through some good old propaganda and special military training. Reya was responsible for the failed assassination attempts of Harmonia's Queen Scarlet preceding the Harmonian-Martius War, though it's currently unclear why Reya was targeting Scarlet and why she hasn't targeted her since the war. I'll talk about this more in the episode about the Harmonian-Martius War. But towards the end of the Harmonian-Martius War, Reya famously killed Harmonian's commander, James de Clare, in a duel. This is indicative of how strong she is because, as you might recall, if you saw episode 3 of the podcast, James was Harmonia's strongest soldier at the time when he died. What makes Reya so dangerous is her physical strength coupled with her unpredictable and unknown agenda. Part of me wants to say more, but I'm afraid of spoiling too much, so you're just gonna have to stay tuned to see what Reya has in store for our heroes in Mission to Martius, though I can assure you that it is nothing good. Next, we're going to talk about Princess Diana Marian. Here are Diana's references. Diana is white. She has long, light brown hair, dark brown eyes, and fair skin. She's got a curvy build, and she's 5'6". She will generally wear a black gown similar to her mother's in formal settings, but in her day-to-day life, she will often wear a suit of armor. So Diana is the 25-year-old Princess of Martius and Reya's daughter. In many ways, Diana is your stereotypical princess. She's sheltered, ignorant, flippant, and she doesn't often consider or care about how her actions affect the people around her outside of her circle or her kingdom. Though it's important to note that Diana is also very disciplined, which stems from her loyalty to Reya and her constant desire for her mother's approval. She has trained her whole life to become her mother's right-hand man, undergoing military training, regularly investigating potential plots against her mother, and encouraging anti-fairy sentiments. Diana jumps at any opportunity to prove that she is capable of executing Reya's will, which is why she's frustrated that even after all the work that she's done, she still hasn't fully earned Reya's confidence. Reya has yet to let Diana in on the specific details of her plans and her endgame, and it's really starting to get to Diana. So much so that Diana is starting to consider resorting to more drastic measures to win Reya's trust, much to Rowan Donovan's chagrin. Having known each other since they were children, Rowan is Diana's one real friend. They're incredibly protective of each other, and the few moments of tenderness that you will see from Diana is almost always in regards to Rowan or his brother. You'll see that Rowan is very concerned about how far Diana is willing to go to prove herself to Reya as the events of the story play out. I don't want to give too much away. Also, my cat is meowing. But I will say that Diana is a really interesting character with a lot of layers, and I'm really excited for you guys to learn more about her as the story unfolds. Next, we're going to talk about Commander Rowan Donovan. Here are Rowan's references. Rowan is black. He wears his hair in twists, pulled into a high bun with shaved sides. He has dark brown eyes, brown skin, a full beard, and he is 5'10". He wears a full set of armor with a black cape, the Martius military uniform. Rowan is the 29-year-old commander of the Martius military who primarily wields a longsword. Rowan is a character that I'm very excited for you guys to meet, but I also can't say too much about him for the sake of not giving too much away. But what I will say is that Rowan is another character who is a bit mysterious. Not quite as mysterious as Reya, but someone who is definitely hard to get a read on. He's serious and stoic, but he notably doesn't possess the same cruelty that Reya or other Martius soldiers possess. He's much more pragmatic and just focused on doing his job. Martius soldiers can enter the military as young as 16 years old, and that's how old Rowan was when he entered the military. It was very clear very early on that Rowan was a very talented soldier and quickly rose through the ranks of the Martius military. So much so that he was promoted to commander when he was only 20 years old. Marc Donovan, Rowan's father, was the previous commander of the Martius military but was killed in action during the Harmonian-Martius War, leaving Rowan to care for his younger brother, Asher. Rowan is the kind of person who keeps his cards close to his chest. Again, it's hard to tell what he's feeling, but he is incredibly protective of Diana and his brother, and I really cannot wait for you guys to learn more about him. Next, we have Lieutenant General Kyle Falcon. Here are Kyle's references. Kyle is white, he has brown hair, brown eyes, fair skin, and he is 5'10". He also has a beard. He wears a suit of armor with a black cape. So Kyle is a lieutenant general in the Martius military and primarily wields a glaive. Calling him Rowan's second in command would be a incredibly big stretch because Rowan and Kyle are not friends. You may recall from episode 3 when I introduced Commander Cassandra Landerson and Lieutenant Generals Gwen Azure and Luke Galveston that I introduced them as a close, tight-knit unit. You are not going to see the same with Rowan, Kyle, and Sienna, who I will talk about next, however. It's a very different dynamic going on because Kyle follows Rowan because he previously served under Rowan's father, the former commander of the Martius military, and because he doesn't want to get on Reya's bad side, but it is pretty evident that he doesn't actually respect Rowan. Kyle Falcon has a superiority complex in every sense of the word. He's pompous, arrogant, obnoxious. He gets along better with Sienna because they're similarly mean-spirited, but it's pretty clear that he doesn't respect her much more than he does Rowan. The only person that Kyle seems to have genuine respect for, besides himself, is Queen Reya. His support for her has remained unwavering throughout the years, though he remains bitter that Rowan was chosen to be commander after his father's death over him. But Kyle wouldn't dare express those feelings towards Reya and much prefers to direct his discontent towards Rowan. And lastly, we have Lieutenant General Sienna Phelan. Here are Sienna's references. Sienna is white. She has blonde hair that she wears in a ponytail, blue eyes, fair skin, and she is 5'8". She wears a set of armor with a black cape. So Sienna is a lieutenant general in the Martius military and primarily wields a rancer, but she is also proficient with a crossbow. Again, it feels wrong to call her Rowan's third in command because while she and Rowan definitely get along better than him and Kyle, that's really not saying all that much. Sienna is not as loud as Kyle, but she can be just as prideful and cruel. Sienna doesn't really respect Rowan as a person, but she is aware of how strong he is as a soldier, so she follows his orders, and because she also does not want to get on Reya's bad side, this doesn't mean that she's afraid to criticize Rowan, though she tends to be more passive-aggressive than Kyle. But if there is one person who Sienna is completely unafraid to antagonize, it is Diana. Sienna and Diana have always had a contentious relationship because Sienna does not respect Diana at all, and she has no problem with openly taunting her and pointing out all of her flaws. It is definitely a battle of egos between them. Alright, that is all I have for today's episode of the Mission to Martius podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. So, I actually have to tell you guys that the Mission to Martius podcast will be going on hiatus until next year. This is the last episode of this year. Because I've got some other big videos that I want to work on. The next episode will be coming out in April, I believe, sometime in April of next year. But there will be other Mission to Martius content to look out for, so stay tuned for that. There might also be some cool Mission to Martius content coming out on the Raven Productions Instagram. Might want to check that out if you're interested. But if you guys have any questions about Mission to Martius, feel free to leave them down below in the comments. I will do my best to answer them. Once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Mission to Martius podcast. I hope to see you guys in the next episode next year. Bye, guys.